want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I'm Mike Morgan. I'm the chapter chair for APA DC. And yeah, we're very pleased to have you all here, and very happy to have Dana Niebert joining us as well. And also I want to acknowledge Rob Charit, who's actually put this event together for us. And I'll be hosting in his spot tonight. So we're very much looking forward to the conversation, and this is the first of what we're calling the conversations with. We're going to start doing that a few times a year with some select photographers. This is our first one. Next month we're going to have Jeffrey Salter is going to be joining us for that. I believe that's on January 20th. I want to go ahead and get started. Dana, on behalf of the Board of APA DC, we want to say a heartfelt thank you for participating and being our inaugural event speaker. So yeah, I know I think everybody here kind of knows who you are. So I think I'll dispense with the miniature bio, and I'll let you go ahead and take it away and go ahead and start telling us.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for having me. I did put together a little bit of a presentation just to get the conversation going, and then so it'll kind of touch on some stuff, but then I'm sure you guys will have more questions. I know Mike's got some already prepared. So I'm going to roll into that, and then from there we can just keep on going. So I'm going to try and let's see here. All right, hopefully you're seeing something, right? All right, you guys see a camera on there? Yeah, no?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Yes.
Trying the dual monitor thing to see, it's the only way. So I'm using Keynote, and like if you don't do the dual monitor, then you guys see like all the back end of Keynote. So unless I just can't figure that out either. But anyway, so just a little background on me. I'm actually highly uneducated. I did high school and a little bit of art school, and then I'm a hands-on guy. I like to get stuff done. I like to work. So while I did most of the, and I went to school for graphic design actually. So while I did most of the graphic design curriculum, I still owe them like 60 credits of, history and math and all that stuff. And I just wasn't going to stick around for that. So never finished that. I basically started out as a graphic designer and then moved into art direction. And but I've always had photography as a hobby ever since high school. I think I either had really bad guidance counselors, or I was just really naive, and I just didn't think you could really make a living as a photographer. I was like, what am I going to do? Take some pictures in the park. I didn't realize there was a whole commercial aspect to it. I never really put two and two together, like all the billboards you see and all the print ads you see. Well, that's commercial photography. So I never really pursued it. And I got into graphic design, art direction, but I always kept shooting. I would say I never really had much luck with 35 millimeter film. And of course, this is, 25, 30 years ago. So I started in film. 35 millimeter film, medium format film just never clicked for me. And it wasn't until I got a Crown Graphic 4x5. And that's when stuff really started to work for me. And I don't know why. I think maybe it's the slower process of the 4x5. You're going out, you might only take, 10 sheets with you, and you might only use 3 sheets and maybe a Polaroid. Whereas with 35 millimeter, it was a lot easier to, just point and shoot. And same thing with medium format, point and shoot. And I don't know, I just really bonded with the 4x5 cameras. So that's what I was shooting while I was an art director. I go out and just shoot stuff on my own. And I work for a lot of small ad agencies here in San Diego. And a lot of times you just didn't have a budget to hire a photographer. So you would either do a type solution, use stock, or shoot it yourself. And more, I would just volunteer to shoot a job myself, just because it could be easy. Wouldn't have talent or anything like that. Maybe it was a landscape or something easy that I could definitely handle. So I do jobs like that. But in the war times that we did have a budget and we'd go shoot with a photographer, and I was always intimidated by the strobes, all that stuff. And I just thought, well, I could never really do that. How am I going to do that? Like, I got this old camera that's 80 years old, shooting film, and these guys have these fancy strobes, and they have big studios and all kinds of stuff like that. And then I shot a job, art directed a job, and we hired Andy Anderson, who's a big national shooter. And he shows up on the first day and he pulls out a Crown Graphic. Actually, I think he has Speed Graphic, and he has the exact same film as me, Portra 160, a VC. And he's doing this big commercial job with his antique camera. And I was like, oh, so you can do this too? It's like, there's lots of things, lots of times in my life where stuff's not clicking, no pun intended, until like it becomes really obvious to me. So, I started talking with him, and I told him, like, I had the same cameras. I love, like, how do you do this? And one day after the shoot days, he came over to my house, and we were just talking cameras and stuff, and I showed him my stuff, and he flat out said, he's like, if you wanted to switch, he's like, you could switch. He's like, you have the portfolio, you just need a website and you need to promote yourself. So it's kind of Andy Anderson's fault that I'm a photographer now. So he's a super good guy, because there's not a lot of people. I know there's lots of guys out there that won't even tell you what lens they're using. Like, lots of guys will not share that kind of stuff. They won't share marketing or anything like that. Like, it's I kind of feel like because of Andy, I always pay it forward. Like, when people email me or DM me on the Instagram, like, how do you do this, or what's your advice on this? I always help people out as much as I can. So anyway, yeah, so I made the switch, and it was a fast switch. After that meeting with Andy, I put together a website, I made promos, and I think within 6 months, I was out of the ad agency business, and I was booking jobs, and I was shooting, and I told my wife, who we had one, I think my daughter was like maybe a year old, and we had another one on the way, that I was quitting my job with healthcare and all that stuff, and she fully supported me. So I've been lucky that I've just had the full support of everyone over the years to do what I do, to do what I love. So so that's basically the transition, the beginning of this photo career. So a lot of people always ask me, like, what inspires you? And I mean, I do look at other photographers' work, but I'm really inspired by any craftsman. Like, a lot of the people I follow on Instagram are woodworkers or metal workers, just more traditional artists, whether they're sculptors or painters. I'm always intrigued and amazed by people that create, people that just are just so good at their craft. Like, you watch a guy just turning a piece of metal on a lathe, and like how, and it's like, when you're watching him do it, you're like, well, yeah, anyone can get a lathe and turn it. But when you're watching this one guy do it, you're like, that guy, because he's been doing it for 20 years, is doing it like so good, so perfect, that some people may not appreciate what he's doing, but I definitely appreciate that kind of stuff. So so basically, anyone that creates is really my inspiration. I do like a lot of painters. My dad took me to an exhibit at the SF MoMA, as a kid, for Wayne Thiebaud. And I think that was one of the first times maybe that I was really enthralled by seeing art. because, you know, we had field trips in school, we would go to museums and you would see, you know, the more traditional like Rembrandts and whatever on the walls. And um, yeah, of course they're beautiful and nice, but I never really made a connection. And this guy, I was just like amazed by like how simple his work was and just how graphic and simple, just all his stuff. And it's definitely, I think, you know, influenced me because I definitely like to keep things simple and graphic. This is a shot that I did for a company called Aldar in Abu Dhabi. There's a campaign called Water's Edge, and not that I'm Wayne Tebow, but I just kind of and I didn't go into this saying I'm going to do this like Wayne Tebow or anything. You know, it's just like when I look back now, I kind of see like where his influence is kind of you know, trickled through in some of my work. And so this was a shot that we did. We actually shot this entire campaign with a drone. This is the first time I'd ever used like a heavy lift drone where we sent the phase one up, and because everything had to be high res, we couldn't we couldn't rely on, you know, a smaller DJI camera. It had to be you know, had to be 150 megapixels. So this was a really fun campaign, but most of it's pretty graphic like this. So of course, Edward Hopper. I mean, I'm sure lots of people can relate to this guy. You know, just his use of light, just capturing real slice of life. This is kind of stuff that I strive for, like when I'm shooting talent. I mean, it does happen, but I usually don't ever have anyone looking at the camera and smiling right at the camera kind of stuff. I usually like to, obviously it's a commercial job and it's all forced and planned and stuff, but I usually try to make it like scenes like this, like, you know, her arms just in the drawer, she's kind of looking awkwardly at him. That's the stuff I try to capture on set. So yeah, so a lot of this stuff is just resonates with me a lot. And this is just a shot that I had done on my own. Just some personal work that kind of, you know, obviously it's not Hopper, but I just kind of, I feel like his influence is definitely showing through there for me. Richard Demoncorn, kind of like Tebow, just super simple, very refined. I think it's just beautiful stuff. I had done this, so this is and again, I don't look at his stuff and then try to emulate it, but looking back on it, I done this series. It's on my website. It's called Interior Landscapes, and I kind of feel like you know, that's probably something that influenced me in this. Wes Anderson. I love watching movies. Sometimes I'll just watch movies over and over, like not even really paying attention to the story, but more looking at the visuals and just watching. Of course, he's so meticulous with just you know, he has a big part in all the styling and just everything in part of the production. I think a lot more than other directors. Obviously, you know, directors, it's their vision and they hire the people that make that vision come to life. But he's definitely a guy that you know, he's definitely got his fingers into everything on, and that's what makes these his movies just so visually appealing to me. Same with Fincher. I just love you know, just the lighting and just, it's just so just the way everything looks, it's just, I feel like it's so amazing. You know, this could be a Rockwell painting right here. I mean, it's just you know, I watched Fight Club hundreds of times, maybe not hundreds of times, but I feel like I've watched that many, just watching just cinematography. It just I think it's so beautiful. So Albert Bierstadt, another painter. You know, his use of light is amazing. I feel like he paints these scenes maybe not exactly as the way, you know, they happen, but it's kind of like the way you would remember it. And that's definitely something that I do when I'm doing my prints, my work prints. You know, I'll shoot a scene, and of course, I'm going to embellish and manipulate light. You know, in my print to make it like the vision that I saw in my head when I was there. And it may not be exactly, you know, what I saw, but it's it's when I walked away from it, it's what I retained in my head. So yeah, so this is a shot I did in this is Valley of Fire up in Nevada, that I just kind of feel like, that kind of stuff is rubbing off on me. So, and then Ansel Adams, I'm sure everyone, he's on, just about everyone's list. It's almost cliche, right, to have Ansel Adams. And he's definitely in that same camp as Bierstadt, because he was always, his thing was, you capture what you capture on the film, but it's the print that's gonna, that's really gonna make your image shine. So like here's Moonrise over Hernandez. That's like a contact sheet print, just straight from the negative, and the one on the right is his, after he's dodged and burned it and made it even more amazing. Just all his work, I mean, I don't need to talk about him, right? So this is a shot I had done in Yosemite a few years ago. And I definitely, go in and do a lot of dodging and burning, and just from what I've seen from Ansel Adams, and I just try to do what he did. I think he did say that, towards the end of his life, had he had color film existed back, when he started out, he would have shot color instead of black and white. But I don't know if that would have been good, because I just think there's such a beautiful quality of his black and white work. So I'm sure he would have mixed it up, but that's something he did say. So this is probably like the biggest question I get, is like, how do you get the jobs that you get? And I can only really tell people is you make the jobs that you want. And what I mean by that is your portfolio needs to reflect the kind of jobs that you want to get. So if you if you want to shoot cars, you better have cars in your portfolio, right? If you want to shoot people, you got to have people. And when I started out, my first love is landscapes. So when I have free time, that's what I do, is I go shoot landscapes. So when I started out, my book was 90% landscapes, not very much people or anything else in there. But people loved my composition and loved my color and stuff like that. And that's kind of helped me get in a lot of doors of big agencies. But most of the ad jobs are with people. So my book would get called in, this is back in the day when they were calling your books. The book would get called in, we would get invited to bid on a project, and then they'd be like, we need to see more samples with people. And I didn't really have any samples with people. So from then on, I started building. I said, if I want to get these jobs with people, I need to have people in the book. So, and I don't do this very often, but this is a shoot that I did for myself. It was kind of an investment, because I mean, I had to pay for a location and talent and crew. Of course, everybody helped me out as much as they could, and I basically shot stuff that I would want to shoot for a real client. So whether it would be like a hotel or some kind of lifestyle brand, I made images that look like they could be like, this could be a Four Seasons ad, or this could be a Scotch ad or something. I shot stuff that people could, if they didn't know any better, they might have thought that all these shots now in my book were from an ad campaign. And of course, if people ever asked, I say, no, I just shot that for myself. So you mean but just looking at my book, you would think, wow, this guy has shot this and this and this, it must be for this or that. So it was definitely an investment. And this is actually one house in Beverly Hills. It's called the Goldstein Sheets residence. they shot a lot of the scenes from The Big Lebowski here, but I chose this because obviously I only had one day really that I could afford to shoot, and I chose this house because it just had so much. I mean, that looks like I'm in Costa Rica. It's a guy's backyard, you know, and it's like, and this is his bedroom, and that's his pool, and um, that's the living room. It just I could get a lot done in one day. You know, I just had I hired 4 talent, makeup, hair, wardrobe, and all my camera guys, and I just did what I did. And a lot of the shots were stuff maybe that I wanted to do for other jobs that I had that got killed. Because you know, a lot of times, you know, you collaborate on concepts with the agencies in the pre-pro process, and they don't like an idea, which is fine. They don't have to like your idea, but so I went out and I did you know, all the stuff that I wanted to do, and I probably finished, you know, like 120 of the images, and I did that. There's probably maybe like 20 to 30 in there that I really liked that you know, made it on the website and the portfolio, but ended up finishing 120 of them just because I did end up submitting it for stock. So, you know, they always want the variations and stuff. So, um, but um, it's you have to the proof is in the pudding, right? So you have to have the book. If you want certain types of jobs, you have to you have to have you have to have the shots. So you can't, no one's going to hire you because you say, oh, I could do shots like that, you know. That, I mean, this is your resume, right? Your portfolio is your resume. So that's what I did. And you don't always have to you know, rent a house like that, a location like that, and pay all that stuff. You know, I use my kid. You know, it just, let's go on a road trip, and we see something cool, I'm gonna, you know, take a picture of them. It just, the more, and my wife paddleboarding, and there's a boy again. That's my daughter with a manta ray. Because I love travel jobs, so you know, you put the stuff in your book that you want to shoot, and hopefully, you know, it pays back in dividends. So and then, like, if you don't have anyone to shoot, you shoot yourself. So there I'm walking through like it looks like Mars. It's actually it's called Garden of the Gods in Lanai in Hawaii. And I would just do this all the time, where it just, you know, it looks like I mean, this is back in the day, so, you know, everybody does not this on Instagram, so I actually don't really do this that much anymore. But if I didn't have someone to shoot, because it's a lot of times when you're in a cool location, you need someone in there for scale. It makes the shot a little more dramatic, right? So you know, I just shoot myself, and so once you have the portfolio, you have the book that really represents the stuff that you want to shoot, the jobs will start coming to you. And they're not to just come to you. Obviously, have to promote yourself, but you'll start getting invited to you know, the jobs that you want to bid on. And then, well, there's that fine line where you say, well, I look at my portfolio and I think I should be shooting, you know, campaigns for Hilton or Procter and Gamble, but I'm not getting those jobs. Why am I not getting those jobs? Sometimes you have to step back and you know, really look at your work, and sometimes I've shot stuff and I think it's great, and then you step back and you're like, you know, it's not on the caliber, and no matter how much effort and time you put into it, you have to pull it out and make something better. And then if you do have, you know, art director friends, art producer friends to that will give you an honest opinion, I mean, that's more valuable than anything, right? Because they are they're the target market. So do your own little focus group. So anyway, a lot of times people ask me to like define my work, and I never have a good answer. But a few years ago, Goodby Silverstein, they were putting together basically their proposal to their client that they wanted me to shoot for. And they basically did a treatment for me. They never asked me to do a treatment, but they had just done one for me. And once we were awarded the job, I saw what they had, they included all my images. And then they wrote this quote about me. And I thought, I was like, wow, I couldn't have said this any better. They really do understand, what I try to do with my work. So now I just use this because I don't think I could write this any better. And it really does sum up. It really does sum up. And I think it's because I'm not really super cerebral about my work. There's lots of people, you go out there and you read, their artist statement, and they're saying they're like, oh, I'm taking, the power of the heavens and I'm melting them with man on earth, and that's my goal with my imagery. And like, I'm just pointing my camera stuff and taking pictures of stuff that I think I can make look good. So that's really really how deep it goes back in here as far as like image making. But I think this statement from Goodby really does represent what I do try to accomplish. So I mentioned already that landscapes are definitely my favorite thing to do. When I have time off, I'll go somewhere. It's usually I do spend a lot of time on the road, so I'm kind of always pre-scouting, and I may go back somewhere. I love image making, and sometimes it's nice to not have the production around you and not have to deal with all that stuff. It's just nice to go make images. Like that's why I started this back in high school, because I just love making images. So I love landscapes. I could definitely shoot landscapes forever. This is Abu Dhabi. This is just middle of Central California. Just all kinds of stuff. Here's Shiprock. So this is Shiprock in the evening, the night before, and then this is Shiprock the next morning. So it definitely pays to like wait for the right light. I mean, I do love this image too, but it's obviously two different worlds here. Yeah, so I just love landscapes. I shoot as much as I can. It's just you and the camera, and you go on the road and you find cool stuff, and you make images. So once in a while I do get a job to shoot landscapes, a commercial job to shoot landscapes, and it's happened a couple times. And this one was actually a dream job, because Chevy has this magazine called Chevy New Roads, and they were doing a story called The End of the Road. And they called me and they said, we just need a bunch of shots of dead ends, the end of the road places, and you can go anywhere you want in the US. We need them in like a couple weeks. One we definitely know is we want the last road in Kauai. So you have to go to Hawaii. And I was like, oh geez, like, oh, I have to go to Hawaii. But other than that, they're like, it's all up to you. So basically I scoured Google Maps for several days, because I didn't, just driving around trying to look for beautiful dead ends, I think it was going to lead me to a dead end in my project, right? So I had some stuff in my mind. I had places I'd been to, and then I just thought of certain areas, and you just get on Google Maps and you follow the roads, and hopefully the satellite image is up to date, and when you get there, that dead end will be there. So so that's what I did. And so basically I did a bunch of dead ends here in San Diego, and then I drove up to Nevada and Arizona and did some there. And then I drove back home. Oh, in the middle of this, I had to go to a meeting in Baltimore for a job that was coming up in like 2 months. I had to go and pre-scout. So then I flew from there to Baltimore. I had my meeting, and then on the same day got on the plane and went to Utah. And this is the dead end in Hawaii, in Kauai. This is that last at Hana Park. This is Salton Sea here in California. Salton Sea again. This is Hoover Dam. So after Baltimore, I flew to Moab, Utah, Moab, and then after that, I had flown to Hawaii. But I mean, it was a dream job for me. It was like, go shoot some landscapes, make some cool images. And so I got to do that. This is just a little behind the scenes video of me doing that last image. So I mean, I got this job because I have a whole landscape section in my book, and I had never worked with an art director before, and she, just based on what was in my portfolio on my website, hired me for this job. Nobody went with me. I just went by myself and did all this stuff. She didn't come. She didn't even care what I shot. I was like, do you want to see the places I'm going to go? She's on, no, I trust you. Like, she's like, I've seen your landscapes and I know you understand the scope of the work. And I don't know if you can see, but I'm actually standing on the roof in the shot, and it looks like I left the passenger door open, probably, or the backseat door on the driver's side. Probably had my tripod in there or something. So I just went around and did that, and this is kind of the collection of images that I made for her, and I think they used maybe 5 or 6 for the story, and just total dream job. And it is crammed in between 2 bigger jobs. So this was great. This is like, it was almost like a vacation, even though I'm working, because I got paid to go to all these cool places. So and then going back to Goodby's statement, his subjects are relaxed if these were his own personal moments. So a lot of times I don't, when I'm shooting with talent, I don't constantly yell at them while I'm shooting, like, put your hand here, put your hand there, chin up, chin left. It's like, I think that works for some people. And I guess it depends what you're shooting. When it's fashion or something, you might need like certain poses and stuff, and you're going to do that. But for me, with my lifestyle work, and I think why we get a lot of lifestyle work is because a lot of the moments that we create just look like we were just part of the scene there, and these were our moments too. So, I usually give them a story, tell them like, hey, you're this or that, and let them run with it. And then, because if you say, pick up this notebook, show it to the boy, it just becomes really stiff. And then they do that, and then they look at you. And then, but if you give them a story, who they are, what they're doing, and then just let them, then stuff like this happens, where moments just happen, stuff that you can't really script. You give her a story of how she's being interviewed at this on this news talk radio show, and just let her run with it. You don't, or I don't tell her what to do. Like, it's very much how, like, when I direct motion, is like, basically any director is going to direct motion, is like, you tell them what the scene is, and you let them collaborate and bring something to it. And I think you just get a lot more out of it. Whereas if you make them a puppet, then they look like a puppet. So you just get natural reactions out of people by just let them do it. here, I think I just told him, like, tell her some high school stories. And then you just kind of wait and he tells her story. And most people have some good story from high school or something, or from their past. And it just made her, like, genuinely smile, like, because she was touched by whatever he was saying. So this is a happy accident. Like, was for American Express, and this was not on the shot list at all. The shot is actually 180 degrees the other way, and we're waiting for a wardrobe change on one of the adult talent. And the girl, I don't even think that was a prop. I think that was hers that she brought to set with her, and she was just over there, and you just let him do something, and you get like shots like this, and they end up using this over other stuff that we shot. So stuff like this is like, you can't really tell a guy to touch their ear awkwardly like that, right? Because if you do, then it looks weird, but it works here. And just being like part of the scene, just melting into the scene, just because you just give them good direction. And I mean, I guess, everybody has their own different techniques, but I think it really works. And I've done other things in the past where I am posing people or being a little more static, and it definitely didn't work. But letting people run with it and collaborate and bring something to the story, then it just becomes so much more natural, I think. Lighting. So I feel like, well, I try to have our stuff look as natural as possible. I'm not, there's definitely deliberate lighting in fashion and a lot of studio stuff that's a different world for me. And I'm amazed by what those guys can do. But for me, that's not me. Use natural light whenever possible. I think it's the most beautiful light, right? It's hard to beat the sun, right? It's just natural light is I think it's the most beautiful. Also, you find with natural light, it's one thing you can't really control too much. So it's another organic part of the process. So but these shots are actually not natural light. These are all stuff we lit. And it's with a rig like this. You guys, this is the Profoto P50 dish. And we usually put a bi-tube in there, or two of them, with 2 or 4 packs. And we try to do what the sun is doing. And when I light, I almost always do one light. It's rare that I'm going to have any kind of fill or anything. I try to emulate what the sun is doing. So going back to these, so this was a shot we just did for Monterey tourism in meetings. And we had 3 or 4 shots that day around town, and we knew by the time we got to this that the sun was going to be behind this building, and this is all completely in shadow. So that P50 rig that I showed you is actually to the left of the frame, maybe it's probably about 50, 60 feet back. And you just try to make it do what the sun does. And that's basically my lighting almost all the time, is one light. I mean, we travel with a lot of lights always, because you never want to be underprepared for something. This is the only luxury hotel in Green Bay, Wisconsin, right across the street from the stadium. And this is the Kohler Hotel. And we can only shoot in here at 5 a.m. because it couldn't disrupt any guests. So obviously it was dark. So that P50 rig, there might be 2 just because of the breadth of the windows outside. So again, just trying to emulate that sun. So not trying to interrupt the guest did not work because even though we told them we were going to be using a hazer and they said it would be fine, it set off the smoke alarms in the entire hotel at 5 a.m. when we did this shot. So, but the shot looked nice. They just had a lot of pissed off guests. Same here. There's an actual outside eating area here that totally blocked any natural light coming in here. This was for Union Bank, and we actually blew this out even more because the whole campaign always had to have a quarter of the whole image with pure white. So if you look at the images for this campaign on my site, you'd see that a lot of them have this big blown out artifact here. But putting that P50 dish a little bit closer for something like this helped just really brighten that up. Same thing here. This was a rainy day in that same color hotel. It was raining outside. This room was a dark, it was a black hole. In the whole P50 dish and lighting from outside is basically what the cinema guys do. If you ever watch the big features and find it behind the scene, almost always it's going to be like, a bunch of 12Ks or 20Ks outside the building pumping in through the windows. And if they do light inside, they're going to try to fake one of the practicals and make it look like it's coming from one of those and beef one of those up. It's rare that like even those guys are going to have like a big fill inside. I mean, they do it sometimes, but for the most part, I try to light from what I've learned from those guys, and that's just light from the outside, especially on the interiors, and it looks a little more real. This shot, it was actually raining and cold. We were shooting. This is Hard Rock in Florida, and I mean, completely gray, not a hint of sunshine. This is that P50 rig, just lighting up this whole pool area. We actually had to go in and retouch out the rain on her. Because even with a strobe, the rain's coming, there's basically little gray streaks all over her that you could see, and little gray streaks all over the tree. You can't really see them on the pad or over the pool and stuff, but and she was freezing. She was like, if you zoom in on a high res, you can see she's just covered with like goosebumps and stuff. But the shot had to be done. So, and again, it's just one light. It's just I always just try to emulate that sun. This here too. So this is the rig. The one on the left on the scissor lift is what we use for this. So we definitely knew that we wanted to do one of these slit shots of the light streaming in, but because of the time of year, the sun was never going to do this. It was going to do it for about 5 minutes, and it was going to be coming straight like at us, and then it was going to go behind that wall. So, but the shot called for this, so we were able to do it with that there. So that's basically like my lighting is just try to emulate real world lighting, and almost all the time it's this P50 dish, and you put it where you think the sun should be. I mean, ideally, you have a scissor lift or a boom lift that you can put it on. Sometimes you can't. So the image on the right is in the pool area at the Hard Rock, and they would not allow us to bring any lifts in there. They were too worried about damaging the concrete. So I think that's a Mambo combo with a C-stand stuck in the top of it, and then tied off so it doesn't fall over. Equipment. I mostly shoot Sony nowadays. I love the cameras. I love the size of them. And this is someone who, like, I walked around Europe with a Graflex D, which is basically, I don't know, this, about the size of a shoebox. and the Crown Graphic. I walked around with those and film in my backpack, and I've always had the Hasselblad, the H series or the XF, and so I really do enjoy that the Sony package now. Basically the A7R series is what we use, and it's good that the high-end Sony cameras are 50, 60 megapixels, because that's about the lowest res you can really have on a lot of these commercial jobs, and not even the car jobs. So on the car jobs, we almost always use the Phase 1 because they almost always dictate 100 or 150 megapixels. It's just because they're going everywhere with these images. They're going trade shows, billboards, everywhere. The other thing is we always use the Cambo. Some guys like the Alpha. I've just always liked the Cambo. I think it's a nicer, smaller package, just for the stitching ability, because just with all digital media, like somebody needs something this, and then somebody needs something this. So especially like, see the shot on the left, when you have a building like that, if you were to just take your camera and play it around, with a 35 millimeter camera, the retoucher would kill you, because there's no way he's going to make all those diagonal lines line up from something that you went like this. Even if you were to use like one of those nodal things, it's going to be a nightmare for them. So when you stitch, obviously the lens, when you stitch with a camera like this, the lens never moves, but the back does. So it just basically makes the film bigger. So now, say your lens is capturing, 90 degrees, you move it around and it's going to get, I don't know, 120 degrees of the scene. And that's usually more than enough for them. So, yeah, Phase 1 on the car stuff. I like the Red for the motion picture stuff. I know a lot of guys really love the Alexa. You watch most features and they're all shot with Alexa. The Red is like maybe 10% of feature films are shot with Red, but I find it really easy to use. It's really easy to get stuff for it, no matter where you are. So Red. Obviously computers, I've tried. It used to be we, drove around with, a big Mac Pro tower back in the day. But, for about 10 years now, the laptops are more than enough horsepower for digital capture and running out files and stuff. If you're not doing a lot of high-end retouching, or certainly if you're like a DIT and you have to do like a lot of color work, or a lot of dailies for motion or something, you need the tower. But for capturing and stuff, we either use the laptop or the iMac. They're both sufficient enough. So the car stuff, I'm not gonna lie, it's fun because you have the budgets for the toys, the arm cars, Techno Cranes, and then one tool that we use that's really specific for stills, and you guys have probably seen these before. It's called a rig. Basically, this plate gets bolted onto the bottom of the car. Then you put this arm that comes off of it, and it's super stiff. It's carbon fiber. You can get it out about, the most you can go with is about 35 feet, I think. But it is so stiff. It's so tied to the car that no matter what the car does, the camera is always with the car. So, and why that is important is because, so if you shoot car to car, say I got in, we had this car go around this turn at, 30 miles an hour or whatever, you probably wouldn't go 30 miles an hour with a trailer, even 15 miles an hour. The chances that, and if I want to get motion blur on the background, I'm going to have to use a slow shutter speed. The chances that that car is going to be sharp are almost no, because you're going to be at like, a 15th or a 30th. So you can get that motion blur and get the sweeping lines and stuff. So we use this rig, and what that rig allows us to do is we can set the shutter on the camera, and we're usually anywhere between like half a second to 2 seconds long is the exposure. And so the car drives and the camera obviously goes with it. if the car hits a bump, the camera, the arm is so stiff that the camera is never leaving that car. So the car stays sharp no matter what happens, you know, while you're doing the shot. And then that's how you get all this blur. And when you're watching it and you look at that thing and you're like, there's no way this thing is going to be sharp, because it looks like this, your camera is just on the other end of that arm 30 feet out, is just bouncing around. You're like, there's no way this is working, but it is, because it's just magnified, because, you know, if the car tilts 1 inch at the car end, then the camera is probably going to tilt, you know, a foot or 2 feet. So it looks like, oh my God, it's like, you think, oh my God, it's wobbling around. It's like, it's just because, you know, you're so much farther out, that 1 inch movement over here is probably, you know, 1 to 2 feet here. But anyway, that's those are some of the cool toys. Here's a quick video of kind of a better, it's from another shop, but it's basically, we walk with it. We walk with the computer. It's just easier. I shoot tethered almost all the time, because no matter what you're doing, like nowadays, I feel like we have to get so much done in a day, that to do this, get the card, download the card, wait for the images to come up, and then call their art director over and have him come look at it. It's just like, you've just wasted what could have been actually probably another run, you know? So, so I'm always tethered. It's rare that I'm not tethered. Sometimes I'm like, we're shooting cars and it's off-road stuff, and I'm shooting handheld, and I'm like, you know, running through the trees, and my guys are running behind me with a laptop in a case, and I'm tethered to them, just because it saves so much time on the back end. So I definitely love being tethered. So and that is, I think that's, oh yeah. So I think the hugest part of being successful is surrounding yourself with great people. You know, all the people that make like this one shot, it's like how hard is it to take a picture of Flo sitting in a throne with 2 motorcycles, and it's so many people. So all those people are doing all that stuff, so I can just concentrate on this camera and making the image as good as I can. So I don't know if you saw, but I probably moved the camera like 20 or 30 times to find what I thought was the best angle and the best shot. And, you know, every time I do that, they're moving the throne, they're doing this and that. So, you know, once you find good people, I keep them. I mean, I've been working with some of my guys 15 years, other people 10 years, 5 years. I'm not, you know, there's some people that are like, oh, I got to hire the new hottest assistant out there or lighting guy out there. And it's like, you find good people, you keep them. I'm extremely loyal to my crew. Like I'm always, you know, they're my go-to people. They're the reason that I always tell people my job is so easy. I just push a button, because, you know, you give these people your vision, and someone builds this awesome throne, and, you know, someone else is sourcing these motorcycles, and my guys, you know, exactly, they know where I want these lights, and you know, how to do that. And, you know, the producer, she's, you know, wrangling all this, and, just everybody from the guy that runs the Moho to, I mean, we use the same Moho guy because he's just so awesome. He's so amazing. Like, and he'll go, you know, I live in San Diego, California. So we have a job in Colorado, and we'll call him first. Hey, Brent, you want to go to Denver? And he's like, shit, yeah, I'll go. So, you know, he's like, I'm up for a road trip. And, you know, and it's usually on a longer job that will pull him out there. You know, if it's a 3-week job, then you know, I guess financially it's definitely worth it for him. And of course we love having him. And so yeah, that's kind of all the background stuff that I have, really. So I know Mike has more questions, and if you guys want to touch on anything that I kind of glossed over, or if I raised more questions by anything, but definitely can answer, keep the conversation going here.
Absolutely. Dana, awesome work. Super amazing. And I really appreciated you talking about, your inspirations in art, and then like we were showing the images from the Sheets Goldstein house. Suddenly I was looking at it and seeing it like, like a Bierstadt landscape with Edward Hopper characters hanging out in it. So that was pretty cool. I definitely did have some questions for you that I wanted to bring up. So I don't know if you can talk a little bit about, you've been with Fox Creative for quite a while, and you talked a little bit about the great team that you've built and stuff. But can you talk a little bit about how all of that came about, and a little bit more about why
Yeah.
it's so important?
So back, way back Andy Anderson time, when he said, get your shit together and I think you can do it. Obviously being an art director, I knew who all the agents were out there. I knew who I respected, like agent wise. I knew who was working, photographer wise. I knew who was getting promos coming across my desk, that kind of stuff. So I contacted maybe 4 or 5 that I thought were really good. And I had conversations with maybe 3 or 4 of them. And then I just think Fox and I, we melded really well. We had the same philosophies. So it's Marsha Fox and Paige Long. And I've been with them ever since, and we don't have a written agreement or contract or anything. It's basically a handshake deal, and they take care of me. And I think they're having an agent is I guess it's expensive, right? Because they're taking 25% of your earnings, of your fee earnings. But I run a pretty lean operation here. I mean, it's on a daily basis, it's just me. I don't have any employees. If I didn't have Fox, they've got, half a dozen people there pimping my workout. When we're bidding on jobs, all the negotiating is going through Fox. And on some of these jobs, we can be going back and forth for 1 to 2 weeks on estimates, several versions a day. If I'm on a job, I definitely don't have time to do that. Even if I'm here at home doing stuff around here, I probably don't have time to do that, and I don't want to do that. And then also just having an agent like, they obviously, they're my eyes and ears. Like, they know what's going on in the industry. They know what's acceptable for rates. They know, just kind of how business is going overall in the industry. So I think they're invaluable to have. You just have to weigh the pros and cons and whether or not you want to give up that chunk of money. But I think it's totally worth it. So.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess you're going to have the overhead one way or another. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I don't have any employees here, which is good. I don't have to, no one's depending on me here directly. Well, except my family, but if I have a bad year, I don't have to fire anybody or something like that. So.
For sure. And so you mentioned, I know you were talking a little bit earlier about dodging and burning and that kind of stuff. So how much of your post-production are you doing yourself versus it being outsourced, both on your personal work and on commercial jobs?
It varies by each job. Definitely, like lifestyle, landscapes, I'll probably do all the retouching on those jobs, just because it's going to be, of course, my print, my lighting, my aesthetics, that kind of stuff. That stuff I can handle. On the car stuff, I'll still do my work print and give them a print of what I think looks good and what I think the shot should be. But when it comes time to the retouching, they usually have a retoucher like Curve or someone someone that specializes in automotive, because they noodle these things to death. Those guys are sometimes they're spending 40, 60 hours on a single image, especially if you have a technical issue. Sometimes we'll get somewhere and we'll be shooting and we'll look at the screen and I'll be like, hey, so sometimes they peel coat these cars, which is basically change the color of the car. It looks like paint, but it's called a peel coat because you can literally peel it off and go back to the original color. So they'll peel coat the car and maybe it's been around for a couple trade shows or a couple photo shoots. And like, I'll be like, hey, this thing scratched the hell. And like you and me standing here looking at it looks fine, but you blow it up on a billboard and it's going to look like hell. So like the retouchers, like they're the experts that they can fix that. They can put in the time. I probably wouldn't have the time. I probably wouldn't have the expertise. I mean, it's some tedious stuff, sometimes, that they'll just take stuff and because of the angle that we're at, like, oh, why does this wheel look so small? So they'll tell them to make the wheel a little bit bigger, but just making the wheel a little bit bigger, it's like, it's a lot of work, so they noodle stuff to death to make their cars look as real and good as possible. So yeah, definitely on the car stuff, turn it over to the experts. So
Sure. And there's a great question that was DM'd to me. And folks, and you can put questions in the chat if you want. You don't have to direct message to me. But it was asked, how involved in the casting the talent are you? What exactly is your process for finding the right talent for the job?
So for most jobs, especially if we're like LA or New York, we're going to do a proper casting, probably be a video casting. So we can see just mannerisms and how they take direction. Sometimes we'll have the casting director tell them to do something and just see their overall personality. And then it all depends on the job. On some jobs, like maybe a pharmaceutical job, the agency probably has a list of like 20 points that they have to like cover off on. And so on those, I might step back a little bit more and they're going to make selects. And I'll say, I'll just have the producers send me their selects and I'll chime in like, hey, I think these are all great. Or maybe watch video number 4 again. He really looks like he's insecure and that's going to be a problem if you want him to do the actions that we're going to ask him to do. So, and then some jobs I'm very involved from the beginning. If it's going to be, if it's a specific talent and we need them to do something, a certain look or something, I'm going to chime in and be more of that process from the beginning rather than just kind of give my blessing at the end. So.
Sure. Interesting. And then and we've got one here. So Doug Levy's asking, so obviously you do end up retouching out the arm on the car jobs when you're using that, right?
Yeah.
And it's a really good second part of the question. So you're shooting motion and stills simultaneously? Like how does that work out? And I mean, are you sometimes doing a motion project and they're also asking you to do stills?
Yeah. So simultaneously, like same job, yes. There's lots of jobs where it was funny, like maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, like all of a sudden everybody's like, we need motion assets. And then they would give them all these motion assets and they had like zero use for them. They just wanted to get them because we were there and they would never use them. But nowadays it seems like they have more specific uses. So there'll be, definitely do both. If we're shooting motion and stills, then we'll light for motion just if possible, so we can use the same lights for both motion and stills. And then it's usually as simple as shoot the motion, put the camera down, shoot the stills, and then move on, kind of thing. So yeah, but we definitely, I don't know, maybe half the jobs we do is half and half.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. And Matt Dandy's got a question here. It's something I kind of wanted to touch on. So you do a lot of inventing gear for specific photo tasks. So can you share something you're most proud of? There was an interesting problem that you needed to solve, and I'd love it if you could also tell everybody about 9 volt as well, and kind of get into that a little bit and tell us about that.
Yeah, so 9 volt was born out of necessity, I guess. So this is back in, so 9 volt's been around since 1990, I'd say 1998. So back then I did shoot the Hasselblad cameras for a little bit before I realized I just couldn't make good images with them. But one camera I had was the EL, the 500 EL, ELM, ELX, and they use these batteries, these big NiCad batteries, and they're really expensive. You know, back then they were like $100 each. They didn't last very long, and they would usually blow up, literally like blow the door off the camera, because what would happen is the camera should go bad and they would swell up and pop out. So I got tired of that, and I just made a 9 volt battery adapter that went inside the camera, and that was the beginning of 9 volt. And I think I've just kind of been doing that ever since. So whenever we have something that doesn't exist, then I'll usually make it. And then so 9 volt, the battery adapters, you know, I've been selling those for years. And I still have them on the 9 volt site, and people still buy them. Like I'm surprised how many of those we still sell. But what happens is, you know, I have a lot of BTS videos either on Instagram or on the website, and people would see, hey, what's that? Where'd you get that? I need that. And so, well, I just made it for me. And then, can you make one for me? You know, and then can you make one for me? And my buddy wants one. And so then these things become like products, and I just been putting them in their 9 volt. Let me see if I can go back to sharing here. Is that my website there?
Yes.
All right, so yeah, so basically everything on here, like so we needed a power solution for the laptops on set. So I'm you know, V-mount batteries are like V-mount Anton Bauer batteries are, you know, you can rent those in pretty much any city. So we made a solution to power your laptop all day long using batteries, because my laptop usually rides on my cart, and I don't ever want to be hindered by having to unplug from a cable or drag. You know, once you start dragging extension cords, they get tangled in the wheels, or hold on, I got to unplug or something. I just never want that hindrance. Same with these iPhone, iPad mounts. I mean, this is basically all stuff that that I needed, and so they became products. The DigiPlate was probably the biggest one that I did a few years ago. Even strobe parts. I just got tired of paying like $600 for a flash tube from Profoto. So I found the factory that makes them, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I can have these for me. And then people are like, well, I want cheaper flash tubes from the same factory in glass domes, and you know, so that's why it's such like a hodgepodge of random stuff on the site. It's not like I have all lighting stuff or all cables, or you know, it's just kind of like you know, stuff that I made for my Komodo that other people wanted. So so that's kind of why 9 volt exists. Is selfishly it's for me, but then you know, people want this stuff, so I just make it available to other people. So, and it's turned into a great little side business, and I have fun. I love making stuff. I don't care if it's with a table saw or a 3D printer or a camera. You know, I just like making stuff. So it was funny because when I was in design school, it was for graphic design, and the dean of the school at one point had said, you should go into industrial design. Have you considered that? And I go, that's stupid. I'm going to be a graphic designer. And now, you know, 30 years later, I kind of wish I did study industrial design, because I'm definitely interested in it. So.
Yeah, well, it's awesome that I don't know, you made some of these serious needs into a reality. And related to that, Rob wants to know you bringing back the Sukechi. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but
Yeah, I
pretty
haven't
awesome.
had time for that. But I'm gonna try really hard in 2022, make a Sukechi 2. So
All right.
hoping it happens next year.
Okay, we'll be looking forward to that. So
Yeah.
put in your orders early, folks. Let's see. Okay, so Towner has a question. So you're the king of 20-day shoots with GMC, etc. What's your trick for keeping your energy up during such long shoots?
Um, I think it's once you have kids, you back then, when they're little, you have kids and you learn to rest when you can and go, you got to go on duty when you got to go on duty. And so for these shoots, we do have a lot of 20, 30-day shoots. Not a lot, but they happen a couple times a year, where we definitely we try to schedule some down days in there. It's not always possible just because it just gets kind of, I don't want to say out of control, but like sometimes stuff, it's like this location is only available here. We thought we are gonna have a down day, and it's like, so we don't always get the down days, but we do try to give people at least enough overnight rest so that you're not like, you're not wrapping at 12 a.m. and then having a 4 a.m. call. So if we have, definitely if we have like a late night, the next day is going to be a down day or a later call. But yeah, I mean, I just, I love what I do. So that's probably keeps me going. I have a great crew. We definitely have a lot of fun. I'm pretty much friends with everyone on my crew. So, well, I pay them, so they have to be my friends. But, we have a good time, and it's, and we've become friends with the agency people and stuff. So it's almost like a giant road trip a lot of times, where it's definitely hard work and grueling. Some of these people with them from their families for 3 or 4 weeks, so it can definitely wear on you. So I think just the fact that we all get along, that we have a good time, we have fun. I think that's actually huge, is having a good time, because we're really lighthearted on set. We have a good time, and I think usually if we're shooting with somebody new, like on day one, within a couple hours, the client's like, okay, I get it. This is fun. I mean, it's not a party, but it's definitely not like, I'm not walking around yelling at people and, and screaming and everybody knows, we're having a good time. And it helps with the talent too, because after maybe the first shot or two of the day, then they realize, oh, okay, these guys are like, they're chill, they're relaxed, they're here to have a good time. And I think the vibe just keeps going. So that definitely helps on the longer shoot. So
Yeah, that's vital, I think, really.
yeah.
And there's a really great follow-up question to this before I get to one of the other questions there. Joel Coleman was asking if you can talk about the work-life balance, and how you personally combat creative burnout.
Yeah. Let's see. It's hard because, as a freelance commercial photographer, you don't have a consistent schedule, right? Like there's times where we're going for 2 months solid straight, and then there's times where I'm home for 2 months solid. Like there's times where in a regular year, there's usually a month or two stretches that I don't pick up a camera, that I'm doing other stuff, that I'm I definitely love the 9-volt stuff. Just doing stuff around here. And it was good, when the kids were young. It was hard because if I had to travel, I had to travel. So I did miss some stuff, like where my wife had to pick up the slack, where she had to go to the school meetings or whatever. And but there's other times where, I go to the school performance that's at 10 a.m. on a Thursday, where there's no other dads there. And because I can do that, because I can just walk out of my office and walk down to the school around the corner. So, it definitely is challenging sometimes, but a lot of times it works out pretty good because there are some photographers that, work 350 days a year or something. And I don't work that much. We do have some longer shoots, but I'm definitely not in the grind like constantly. So, yeah.
Smart. I'm going to go back to Georgia had a question about marketing and promotion, about what your advice is with that. And I know if you can talk about it, I know you do some really enormous print promo of items over the years. And I'm curious too, like a lot of creatives not in the office, over the last year or so. How's that changed for you? Are you still putting those out? Like what's the strategy there?
Yeah, because of the current state of, coronavirus has definitely changed it. So for the past, 18 years or so, Fox and I, we've definitely always believed in the printed promo. Not just the printed promo, but that's definitely something we always I don't know how many we print in a year. Like usually it's like 50,000 promos a year, and they go to all the creatives in the country. I don't know what their timing is like, but they're getting them like probably every couple months or something in the mail from Fox. So the deal with Fox is I print them, they mail them, which is good. So I can't imagine what the postage is on all that stuff, So that was the part of the formula for so long. But like you just said, creatives are not in the office, and they're still not. Any Zoom calls that I've been on, you can tell everyone's at home. And then now with this new variant, even some corporate like Apple and Google and stuff are saying, okay, we're not going back to this. So the agencies have definitely been the last to go back. And so if the bigger corporations aren't going back, the agencies aren't going to go back now. So it's like, if you were to mail promos now, I imagine they would just go straight in the trash, because I asked a couple creatives, I go, so do you go in and like pick up your mail, or they're like, I don't go to the office at all. Like, there's no need for me to go in the office. There's nothing for me to do there. I don't need to go get anything. I think one creative, he had to upgrade his computer, and that's the only time he ever went in. So, so for now, like we haven't done any printed promos since, so my promos ran out at the end of 2019. We were getting ready to ramp up again in 2020. Corona hit, so we obviously didn't even print, which is good, because I'd be sitting here with like, a bunch of promos, 50,000 promos that probably wouldn't go anywhere. So, it's like, how do you market now? Well, so promos were obviously just one part of the plan. The other part was the reps would go and do shows. That's obviously not happening either, right? Because there's no shows to do. There are Zoom shows. I haven't done any. I've been reluctant, because I just kind of feel like it's weird to troll through my website with people. I don't know. Maybe some people have good experience with that. I should probably ask around, maybe even ask some creatives that I know, like, do you like those? Like, do you think they're worth doing? Or like, would you just rather go to my site? Would you rather just get an email from me or my agent and go to my site and check out my work? Or do you want me to like troll through my site for you?
Right.
But I should definitely like find out before. So those two avenues are kind of dead, right? So I also run ads in Archive magazine, which is a really good way to get to creatives. It's not super expensive. Almost every creative director, art director in the country, even some of the writers, get Archive, and it's their own personal subscriptions, so they're going to their houses.
Mhm.
So that's still good. Another thing that I do is Ad Edge. They're basically a source book. They do have to contact you and say, hey, do you want to be part of it? So I don't know if like they're open to people contacting them and saying, hey, will you consider me to be part of your thing? But what they do is they send out these little books, and they're really nice. They're nicely printed. They're a good size, and because their roster, or I don't know if you call it a roster, but the number of people they have in the book is not. It's not like workbook where it's 600 pages. It's this
Sure.
little book. Probably have one right here. It's this little book, and it would go out to agencies, I think 6 times a year. So every 2 months, you're getting refreshed, and they're very nicely designed. It's all top tier caliber talent in here. These are not going out because of, I know they stopped mailing them. They extended so my contract with them for the current term, whatever. I think it ran out in 2019. They said we're going to extend you through 2020 because, or sorry, it ended in 2020. Middle of the year 2020, they stopped mailing these because obviously no one was going to the agency. They said we're going to extend you through the end of 2021. We're not even charge you. And then now that just got extended until March. So, and
Interesting.
I know that they are starting to print these again. I don't know how effective it's going to be, because I imagine if you're the mailroom at Saatchi or DDB or somewhere, and these come in, they probably have a routine where they just pick them up and throw them in the recycling bin, because no one's gonna come in and get them. The other thing that Ad Edge does is they used to do these meetings where you would fly to New York. They would gather all the creative directors and art directors from New York City, or not all of them, but a good handful. And they would come and they would give them a bunch of booze and hors d'oeuvres and stuff. And then you would sit down and go through your portfolio with them. That's obviously not happening right now either. So I'm like a really horrible Ad Edge salesman right now, because I'm basically pointing out all the flaws of doing Ad Edge. They still do maintain a website. I know they are setting up Zoom meeting portfolio reviews, but I just told you my opinion on that. So like, it's for marketing right now is really tough, I think. There's no clear-cut answer. All I can recommend right now is the Archive magazine, just because that goes to people's houses. Obviously, if you have an email list, they're still getting their emails. Obviously, they're just working from home, so that's good. And then obviously, the social media, I don't know how good Facebook is really anymore. It's like, if you don't pay them a lot of money, no one's going to see your business page, your photo page. Instagram is really, I would say it's good, but I'm sure 99.5% of my followers are other photographers and people in the photo industry, and the 0.5% is probably art directors and creative directors. So it's good, even if it's just a handful of them are following me on Instagram, then it's good that I'm staying fresh in front of them. But yeah, I think, probably, the email and just maintaining a website is the best thing right now. Unless they're going to be getting these source books at home.
But there is here in the chat, we have a comment. Ad Edge actually reached out and asked if they could send the books to my home, so I have been receiving them. So
that's like
great.
Awesome to hear. Like,
yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that, because I mean, this is I don't think there's one thing you can do to market yourself. It's definitely culmination of, 4 or 5 different things that make the whole piece. And this has definitely been, I think, a good piece of the puzzle for me. So that's awesome to hear that they're reaching out and asking to send them to people. So
Yeah, that's really great. So yeah, definitely a point for Ed Edge there. So
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, there's no panacea, really for any of these things. It's you
yeah,
can you have to be putting your stuff in the right place at the right time that the person who's looking for your work is going to find it, right?
yeah.
So but yeah, I kind of want to get to a question here, since we did kind of talk about the pandemic a little bit. Cameron Davidson asked, how did you deal with the up and down of the pandemic? What was 2020 like for you and for your business?
Yeah, 2020 obviously was hard. I think pretty much across the board, I feel like the ad industry shut down the first, it was like March 2020, March, April. It was like pretty much done. I mean, LA stopped issuing permits right away, film permits, so you couldn't even work in LA. So yeah, so we had probably a few jobs like slated to start around that time, and they obviously like, hey, we're going to wait a couple weeks till this pandemic thing rolls around, and then we'll get back. And then, oh, we're going to postpone a month, and then it was like, okay, project's killed. So that happened to pretty much everything. I didn't work again until basically September. Um, all the lifestyle stuff went away pretty much, just because, at least for me, it did. I think it's easy for a big corporation just reuse last year's lifestyle images. No one's going to care by stock. Um, if it's a happy couple running on the beach, well, there's just 1,000 stock photos on there. You do that and you put your pharmaceutical drug next to it and say, and you're good to go. You can do that for a year. What really saved me was the fact that I do car work. So I only did car jobs last year, and that was starting in September, because I mean, you have to shoot cars. I mean, you got a new car coming out, and you can't use last year's photos if the car's been completely redone. So yeah, so 2020 was pretty brutal. It wasn't a complete disaster only because I do cars. So September through December, we did a fair amount of car work. So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, and that rolled into this year, and then I have done a couple lifestyle jobs since, but still nowhere near what we used to. And I know there's a lot of lifestyle stuff going on, but I don't know if I'm just not getting those jobs right now just by luck of the draw, or if there really are less lifestyle jobs to go around. So
Yeah. Well, speaking of the car jobs, I wanted to go back a little bit in the chat. Peter Grill asked a question. So again, going back to the carbon fiber car rig, he says, from what he understands, is the rigs, they're time and cost prohibitive for many productions. So can you speak on your first experience working with them, and what was your path from shooting, say, a landscape with a car to the more advanced rig and crane car shots?
I think the rig, so there are different rigs out there. If you want the best rig, you call Move and Shoot in LA, and you ask for Peter Creelman. He's the guy that was in those videos. He's all over my BTS videos of the car. He's the fastest rigger, the most knowledgeable guy, especially if you have not used a rig before. He's the guy that's going to help you along and tell you everything you need to know, so you're not looking like a fool. He's and he is the most mellow, super rad guy ever. Like he's like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And then and he'll rig a car faster than anyone. And his rig is the most sturdy rig, and also the best. It's from Germany. It's like, because we've used rigs out there, and it's like, this might as well be like a 2x4, like that. Just like, you know, the guys just aren't that good. The guys that, you know, are the techs are just aren't running the rig are not that good. The rig itself is not that good because there are different grades of rigs. You know, I think the rig he has is worth like 500 grand or something. I mean, it's ridiculously well built. And some of these other rigs, you're like, I think saw that on a Tilta website or something, you know. So um, yeah, so first time using a rig, you know, it wasn't too bad. It's definitely a learning curve. You just but not like something that takes you days. You pick it up pretty quick, like and it's basically you learn on timing, how fast the car should be moving versus and how fast the shutter you should set, because those are the two things. Like you can creep the car really slow and do a long shutter, or the car could be moving a little bit faster and you could do a slower shutter. A faster shutter. So there's lots of variables, but you kind of pick it up pretty quick. You pick the thing that makes a rig shot a little more dynamic and convincing is if you can get some kind of foreground element, if you can get it going past like some bushes or a tree or, you know, a signpost, all that kind of stuff really helps to sell the motion. But I don't know if that answered the question, but.
And yeah, Peter, if that didn't, maybe you can follow up in the chat here. And Nicole is asking if you could speak to your younger self, what advice would you tell yourself about the business of photography?
I don't know if I go into it because it's so competitive. You know, it's really, I feel like it's very competitive, and it just seems like it changes a lot. So it can be really stressful, I think. Like if one of my kids wanted to be a commercial photographer, I'd have to give him more warnings than advice. I think it's like, just because I feel like it's extremely competitive, which, you know, which is fine. Competition's fine. And you always put your best foot forward. And I kind of feel like if you do what you do, you're going to get hired for what you do, right? And I think that can only go so far, because there's some shady people out there when it comes to competition, and they do weird stuff happens when you're bidding on these jobs sometimes. And you just have to kind of go with the flow. And you just never know. Like, I think in this industry, like people are always afraid of CGI, like, oh, there's going to be no photographers because CGI. Well, that's not true. Like, right. Like we do a fair amount of CGI. It's a good tool. It's another tool, but I don't know if it's ready to replace photography right now. But yeah, I don't know. Just tell my younger self advice. Like, I guess maybe that was the advice, is just do what you love doing, and do it well. And then people are going to hire you for you, you know. It's easy to look on Instagram and see what the trends are and try and if those trends aren't you, but you try to copy them, I think it just muddles up your brand. And if you just forge ahead with doing what you do, you know, like somebody like Nadav Gandar, who he just does Nadav, and he doesn't, because like the coolest thing is like using a purple smoke bomb in your shot. Well, he's not going to do that, right? He's going to just do what he does, and it's just these elegant, sophisticated images. So yeah, I guess that's the advice. It would be you know, do what you do, and you're going to get the work that's due to you. So
And on that note, I mean, I know you showed a lot of your, you know, some personal work and projects that you had done. How regular is that for you? How often are you doing, you know, the more involved kind of personal projects?
Not, so the last like trip that I did just for personal work was actually like 2 or 3 weeks before the pandemic. It was back in February 2020 is when I went and did that shiprock stuff, and I did a bunch of stuff in New Mexico. And it's so like when I'm going to jobs or at jobs, I'm always scouting and I'm looking at stuff, and I'm like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to shoot that one day, and it's in here somewhere. And so I did that. So in New Mexico, I knew I wanted to go to White Sands, and I knew I wanted to go to Shiprock because I'd driven by Shiprock. And if you've ever seen Shiprock from a distance, it's basically a giant rock that sticks out of the earth, and it looks like a ship. So that's what I went and did. But since then, when I started doing those jobs back last year, those car jobs, they all happened to be West Coast, which is where I'm based out of. So I drove to all my jobs because at that point, especially in September, it's like you could fly, but you didn't know. At then we didn't really totally know. None of us were vaccinated then, and then you didn't know really how transmissible is it. It was, okay, you're not going to get it really by touching a door handle. It's only transmissible by air. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to be in an airplane. So luckily all my jobs were West Coast. So I drove to all my jobs, which was kind of a bonus because I would usually build in another day or two into the trip and take side routes and go to places on the way to the job and shoot some landscapes or something. So it's kind of, so I've done maybe 3 or 4 of those trips last year and this year, where I just kind of, I like road trips anyways. So I would just drive, and then sometimes I would plan out where I was going to go. I knew like, okay, I'm going here, and I know there's a place here that I want to go and go shoot it. Or I would just drive, and if I saw something, I would stop and shoot it, or at least take an iPhone pic of it. So that in 3 years I'd come back and get it at the right light or whatever. So.
Well, and talking about the travel aspect, really taken with some of the images you posted on social media, where you're getting ready to travel, and your relationship with your FedEx guy, which is, if people haven't followed that, it's pretty hilarious interactions. And also just the enormous amount of gear that sometimes you're shipping via FedEx, just stacks and stacks of Pelican cases. Looks like the Pelican case factory. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I own a fair amount of equipment, just because so I do almost all location work, right? I live in beautiful San Diego. I haven't shot here in 5 years, just because everything is like, we want to shoot at this marble mine in Colorado. So that's where we're going to go. And then a lot of times if they don't care where we're shooting, well, I shoot LA because my crew's based in LA. So it doesn't make sense to bring them all down here and pay and add that expense to the job. So we're always traveling, and you'd be surprised how hard it is to get certain things in certain places. You go, especially when you go overseas, you'll call ahead, and the producer say, oh yeah, we have that. Here's the guy, he has that. And you get there and it's not Profoto. That's not a Profoto pack. That's a speed light. We're going to need about 1,000 of those to equal one pack. So, and the other thing is, we just know our stuff's always going to work, or we know at least if something needs to be repaired. So it's like it's nothing worse than getting on a job and having some part of the rental aspect be broken. But you'd be surprised even here in the States how hard it is sometimes to get stuff. We were just in, we were in Tennessee. We were in Tennessee twice this year, and just getting stuff, just getting some V-mount batteries was nearly impossible. Even getting gold mount batteries was almost nearly impossible too. We ended up having to get them from Atlanta
Right.
Yeah, people are like either didn't have them or they're all rented out of Charlotte or wherever. We just couldn't get stuff, so we travel with like so much stuff, and even the strobe, and then obviously the camera, because the camera is just too important. So yeah, we definitely travel with a lot of stuff. And we bill a kit fee with the travel costs to ship it or fly with it is usually cheaper than if we were to rent it, because we bring so much. We just charge like a small kit fee for all the lighting, that if we had rented all that stuff a la carte, it would have been 3 or 4 times more. So it kind of works out in our favor, because we know what we have, we know it's going to be there, and then it doesn't kill the budget too. So
Yeah. And then kind of a quick follow-up to that. Anwar was asking, using air tags with all of these things, or you have a process with that?
we
Keep track
did.
of
So I got a bunch of air tags, and it was a complete failure, because on your phone you can only have 16 air tags on your account. So you'd either have to make several accounts, because we're traveling with like anywhere between 30 and 50 cases. So we just did this job in Cherokee, North Carolina. And so we're like, oh, well, we'll just throw air tags like in every 3rd case or whatever, right? Well, FedEx lost several cases, and every case they lost did not have an air tag.
of course.
So it didn't do us any good. I mean, it was good. I could see the air tags traveling across the country. I knew exactly where most of my stuff was all the time. And then in FedEx, so there's something going on with labor. I mean, there's something going on with labor across the country. In like maybe just a little bit on the west side of North Carolina, the labor is like evaporated, scarce. It's crazy, because so we did a casino job. Most of the casino restaurants were not operating because they didn't have enough employees. The one restaurant we went to had like 50 tables, but they're only seating 6 tables because that's all they could service. And then, so the cases that were lost at FedEx, we never got a clear answer from them, but I just don't think they had the manpower to deliver them. So what happened was it ended up being okay, because it was duplicate equipment and we didn't need it. So it was extra strobe packs and strobe heads and stuff like that, and some batteries. But I think what happened was they were so understaffed. I mean, I would get on the phone and be like, according to your tracking on your website, these cases are 10 miles from my hotel. Can I just go get them? And they're like, well, because of COVID, we can't have outsiders in our facilities. And the stuff sat 10 miles from our hotel for the duration of our job. We left, and I had to call FedEx like 3 or 4 times and just be like, just send it back to my house. I just want my stuff back. And it still sat there for another couple of days before it was loaded on a truck and came back here. So it was something weird with like the labor. So I think FedEx is like, or just that part of North Carolina was just, I mean, I haven't had no, I mean, that's all speculation. I have no idea. I mean, why wouldn't they deliver? I mean, they delivered 20 other cases. Why not just bring those other 4 to us, like.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
this echoes some experiences I've had too. So I think, I think it's, got to be just a labor shortage, and maybe they're, bringing on some people who, it's not as efficient,
Yeah. And I think it's weird, because UPS is fine, but every package that I've had delivered to me here at the house for the past 2 months, even before, the holiday stuff started, has all been late by 1 or 2 days. Like it's like, I just think something's going on in FedEx. They're not fessing up to it, but they got a problem and they're not able to solve it,
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And if you think anywhere near Tennessee, they should be totally on top of it with FedEx, right?
Yeah,
It's
right.
where they're
Because it's their
based.
hub, right?
So yeah, and I just wanted to make the point in the middle there, that you mentioned you're talking about shipping 30 to 50 cases. So just I wanted to make a point of that. Just it's
Yeah.
pretty incredible.
Yeah. So we're like, if we're just doing stills, we're like 20 to 30. And then if we're motion also, it's like 30 to 50. And then, obviously wherever we go, we rent grip and stuff like that. It doesn't make sense to bring it from
Right.
LA all the way out there. But a lot of our equipment is either specialized or just sometimes it's just hard to get. So
For sure. And we had a couple questions here before we wrap up. George was asking again, I wonder, how did you trigger focus the phase one while it was on the drone during the Aldar shot in Abu Dhabi? Can you talk about that?
Phase does make, what's it called? It's called like the IX body or something, and it's made for aerial work. And there's like a little port on it that you can hook up, that the guys with the remotes that are controlling the drone, they can hook up stuff so that you can fire the camera and you can do autofocus. But you're so high up that it's almost always just kind of set at infinity. And actually sometimes a couple of times we went and we're like, let's just go ahead and lock it down so it doesn't. And there was actually, and there's the lenses are made for that. And then you just put a regular, IQ back on it, but the lenses are made for that. So they had a little set screw. So you could, because you think about it, like if your drone's up, I don't know, 50 or 100 feet up and you're with a wideish lens, infinity happens at like 20 feet or something on most lenses. You're somewhere in there, 20, 30 feet. So it was just like, let's just go ahead and lock it at infinity, and then set the f-stop at like 5, 6, or 8, and we're fine. So
Good point. Right. Well, I know we have just a couple minutes left with you. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about APA, and like and specifically wondering, how can APA help photographers in your market and nationally, with growing their business and especially in these times.
yeah, I think it's good. It's good when they do the award shows because it brings people together. So it would be great if they could somehow, and I know that APLA does something where they try to integrate with the advertising community. They have a show in the APA LA. I think it's called Off the Clock or something, but when the show is all done, they display it in ad agencies. So your photos are getting like, in the hallways, and people can take note of your name and maybe contact you someday. So whatever they can do to integrate the two industries together, because award shows are obviously really good for promotion. That's another part of our marketing, basically. But you have to enter award shows that creatives, advertising creatives see. So, and that's mostly like communication arts or archive, or if you're part of a great campaign, like One Show or something like that. But if you're entering some of these photo shows, even when PDN was around and they had some of the bigger shows, you ask an ad creative and they're like, what's PDN?
Right.
So you get accolades within our photo industry, but it's it's good. Like PDN had like cash prizes and cameras and stuff. So it was good to enter that, if you won, but it doesn't really help you marketing wise. So whatever APA can do to integrate the two or get them together is great. And I know APA has lots of programs that support photographers. So it's a great resource. But the shows are good, even if if they're not getting them in front of the ad creatives, just because, you know, it brings a sense of community. You can see, especially like within your local market, you can see, you know, what your fellow photographers are doing and what they're proud of and stuff like that. So yeah.
For sure, for sure. All right, well, Dana, I think we'll end it here. And
All right.
again, I just want to thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For joining us tonight and sharing your amazing work and all
Yeah,
the
no
stories
problem.
behind it. Yeah, we all truly enjoyed it. And then I just want to remind everybody, you know, next month, you know, please join us, the Steve Jessmore event, and then we'll have our second conversations with episode with Jeffrey Salter. So hope you'll all join us for that as well. So thank you very much. Yeah, and Cameron Davidson headed to 9 Volt to order some goodies. So yeah,
Awesome.
be sure to check out yeah, the breadth of Dana's photography. He's got fingers, I guess, in on both sides. So yeah. So I thank you again, and thanks everybody
Yeah,
for
thank you.
joining
Thanks
us.
for having me. All right.
All right. Good night, everyone.
All right. Good night.